today I want to talk about a few questions that often come up, and also questions that you sent me around anxiety, burning questions that may have been on your mind that really also keep you stuck on this journey from anxiety to emotional freedom. So let's just jump into this. And the first question that I got was the questions: I have anxiety. Does this mean I will always have to deal with it? Isn't that like something we get told? You know, you're anxious, so sorry, this is just your little default. You may have just to always, find a way to cope, manage, or ideally just sit through it. And that is not true. Anxiety is not something that needs to keep us stuck. Just because we have anxiety now doesn't mean we have to live with it forever. Now, anxiety is a normal emotion. It's not something that, you will never ever feel. But whatever triggers your anxiety now, whatever is that pattern that seems to be coming up over and over again, that is not a pattern that you cannot resolve. In fact, the anxiety is a little bit like a warning light, this flashing red emotion that says, pay attention to me. And we are not paying attention. And that's why so many people feel that over the years, anxiety gets worse, because for some reason, it just doesn't let off. Well, is that really because anxiety tries to torture us? Or is it actually because anxiety has something important to tell us and we just don't really know what? We cannot yet decipher its meaning. So how do you know? Let's say you hear all about anxiety and everyone has it. And in fact, it seems like from statistics that there is a chance that every other person in their lives will have to deal with anxiety. So that's like 50%. That's a lot. How do you know that anxiety is actually holding you back? What are the warning signs that it's not just a fluke, but really a problem in your life? I'm going to tell you something that you may not know, but anxiety is not the problem. Anxiety is an emotion. I know it can be really, really intense, and it can certainly feel overwhelming. And especially when you have been dealing with panic attacks, you do feel, oh my God, something is really pushing me to the ground. But the problem, what holds you back, is more how we then respond to the anxiety. Because when you have anxiety, and I know how I felt when I was dealing with anxiety, it was the anticipatory anxiety of having another anxiety attack that was way worse than actually the anxiety being even present. It's like the way we respond to anxiety. That's usually what keeps us stuck. My favorite go-to anxiety response was to either obsessively think about something, overanalyze whatever options I thought I had to choose from, or ruminating constantly about the worst case scenarios. That's a response to having anxiety. So you have anxiety and then your mind says, okay, now what? So this is I call it the secondary anxiety. It's this anxiety that basically is the fear of our own emotions. And how do we deal when those emotions are coming up again? So one of those ways and one of those warning signs that tell you you're not really responding to anxiety in a healthy or healing way is when you wake up in the morning and you already wonder, when is my next anxiety attack coming? When does the anxiety come back? What's going to happen? So you anticipate, and you notice that eventually your main focus is on always watching for the anxiety to appear. You think about, well, what if I'm in the supermarket and then all of a sudden I have an anxiety attack? Or what am I with my friends and they all have a good time and I feel totally uncomfortable? It's not certain that it's going to happen, but in your mind, you're already creating this scenario. So this anticipatory anxiety makes the anxiety eventually become your identity, because you see yourself as different and you see yourself as odd or weaker or flawed, and then you hold yourself back. Another one is this obsessive thinking that I was so good at, and that often happens when you have a specific anxiety. Let's say you have health anxiety and you're noticing a little tummy ache, and then you go to Dr. Google and you're definitely researching everything you can find about what potentially can be wrong with you. Or you're thinking about your job and why you're probably going to get fired, and then you're thinking about all these evidences and all the reasons why you are sure that your boss doesn't like you. And so that when your thoughts just spiral out of control, that is certainly also a way you know the anxiety has been really a topic that is overtaking your life. And then there is, of course, the micromanagement, where you're over planning, you're not leaving anything up to chance, you're constantly thinking, okay, what is the next move ahead? And you're not really relaxing, because life is a constant, it has to be black and white, it has to be exactly the way that you want it to be. And if it's not, you get very uncomfortable, and actually you cannot roll with the punches. You feel easily overwhelmed when something is out of the ordinary. And that holds you back, because life is not predictable. Life is not a chessboard, and it's certainly not something that you can control or do completely on your own without trusting other people to support you. Anxiety also holds you back when you feel less than, because you may feel with the anxiety also an insecurity, an emptiness, a lack of self-worth or meaning. And then you reach out to others and want to get that what you're missing inside of you from others. So that's classic pleasing or codependent relationships, where unless you have been giving to everyone else a lot while completely ignoring yourself, or unless you get this sense of reassurance and being wanted from your partner, you feel miserable and you feel anxious. And that brings a problem, obviously, to the outside, because you cannot really control other people. You cannot really determine how they're gonna treat you or what they're gonna think of you. And that also holds you back, because you're not paying attention to yourself anymore. You're only paying attention to what's going on around you. And much more clear signs when you really know that you're stuck with anxiety is when you feel paralyzed and stuck because you cannot make choices, because you feel like that you need this sense of self-medication and these distractions to not have to feel yourself or sit alone with yourself. And when you are alone with yourself, you become very uncomfortable. You have to definitely turn to screens and turn on the television or call a friend, because you're literally feeling like being with a uncomfortable or maybe even dangerous stranger in the room. And then, of course, there is also the physical part. Anxiety holds you back when you have insomnia, when you feel there are these physical symptoms like high blood pressure, chronic pain. You can even have autoimmune diseases that are all related to the stress that anxiety can bring up. So there is a whole bunch of things that you know. Anxiety is an issue. It's not necessarily your menace. As I said, anxiety is there, but then how we think about anxiety and how we respond to it, that usually holds us back. And the easiest way to know that anxiety has been in some ways that block in your life is observing your comfort zone. How big is your comfort zone? And that basically means, like, what do you allow yourself to do? Are you still taking any risks? Are you still doing something that maybe feel a little bit like, I don't know about it, uncomfortable, but you do it anyhow? Or are you playing it safe? Do you feel like that your life is shrinking down? The number of people you're in interact becomes smaller and smaller. Do you feel like that you may have stopped growing, stopped trying, stopped exploring? And when those things are the case, then you also know, okay, it's time to not just cope with anxiety. It's time to address it and find out, what is this obstacle in my life? Hi, Dr. Friedemann here. Thank you for tuning into my YouTube channel. If you're interested in learning more about fear and anxiety, here you'll find guided meditations, webinars, and interviews with some of the most renowned experts in the field of empowerment. Delve into the over 230 videos and more to come every week.